3 words. That is all it took. 3 words posted by the Iranian Consulate General in India on the morning of May 10th, 2026. And within minutes, the Iranian state media machine had already built an entire narrative around it. We shot it down. And here is the part that should make every single person watching this video stop and think very carefully, because the Iranian government just handed us the most precise intelligence assessment of this entire conflict, and they have absolutely no idea they did it. Before we get into what those 3 words actually reveal, I want you to hold one question in your mind for the next few minutes. If your air defense systems genuinely shot down an F-35, the most advanced tactical aircraft ever built, why would the pilot have had the time, the calm, and the operational freedom to reach up and broadcast his exact position to every radar facility, every military tracking system, and every civilian flight tracking service in the entire region? Why would a combat-damaged pilot in a threat environment do the one thing that lights him up like a signal flare in a dark room? That question does not have a comfortable answer for Tehran. And by the time this video is over, you are going to understand exactly why. Let me give you the full picture, because what happened over the Gulf of Oman on May 10th is actually a window into the entire strategic situation this conflict has produced after 73 days of continuous operations, and the window is open right now before the next phase begins. Squawking 7700 is a specific aviation procedure. It is how a pilot declares an emergency through the air traffic control system. It flags your transponder return on every radar display in the region. It requests priority handling. It announces to everyone monitoring that your aircraft has a problem and needs to land. It is the procedure you use when you need air traffic control to clear a path for you. It is categorically not what you do when you are taking battle damage from Iranian weapons in contested airspace, and your survival depends on exiting the threat environment as fast as possible. A combat-damaged pilot does not light himself up on Flight Radar 24. He pushes the throttle forward, he goes to secure communications, he briefs his flight lead, and he gets out. The 7700 squawk tells you with absolute certainty what kind of emergency this was: a mechanical fault, an avionics anomaly. The kind of equipment issue that a 5th-generation aircraft operated at this pace of continuous combat operations over 73 days will periodically produce, because maintenance cycles compress under operational tempo, because avionics systems accumulate faults that peacetime inspection intervals would catch before they become emergencies. The pilot declared the emergency, turned toward UAE airspace, landed at Al Dhafra Air Base, and the transponder went dark because military aircraft approaching operational bases during combat operations do not advertise their position and approach heading to systems that can read civilian transponder data. Standard procedure, completely unrelated to Iranian fire. The consulate general who posted those 3 words was not making an intelligence assessment. He was running an information operation for an Iranian domestic audience that has been isolated from the operational record of the past 73 days by its own government's information blackout. The record that shows 7 fast attack boats sunk, 3 major tankers disabled, 551 ballistic missiles and 2,000 drones intercepted by UAE air defenses alone, drone launch sites and coastal missile batteries and radar installations destroyed across multiple Hormozgan province locations, and American carrier strike groups conducting completely unimpeded operations from Gulf of Oman positions that no Iranian system has been able to threaten effectively throughout the entire conflict. Now here's where this gets operationally important, and I mean genuinely important in a way that changes what comes next. What was that F-35 actually doing over the Gulf of Oman before the mechanical fault triggered the emergency declaration? Because the answer to that question is the part the Iranian Consulate General does not want to think about. The F-35A carries a sensor suite that is in a fundamentally different operational category from any other tactical aircraft flying in any theater today. The AN/APG-81 active electronically scanned array radar operates simultaneously in air-to-air engagement mode, synthetic aperture radar ground mapping mode, maritime surface search mode, and electronic attack mode, switching between them in milliseconds based on what the mission requires. The electro-optical targeting system provides identification ranges that make it competitive with dedicated intelligence collection platforms. The distributed aperture system gives the pilot a complete 360-degree infrared picture of everything around the aircraft through 6 cameras stitched around the airframe and fed directly to his helmet display, without ever having to maneuver the aircraft to point a sensor at a specific direction. And the electronic surveillance measure system passively collects electromagnetic signals across a broad frequency range, building a complete radio frequency picture of the operational environment without emitting a single electron that adversary receivers can detect. That sensor combination makes the F-35 uniquely valuable for the highest priority intelligence task this conflict has produced, which is finding exactly where the IRGC is hiding its fast attack boats, its coastal missile systems, and its command and control infrastructure before those assets can be employed in the next operational window. Iran released satellite imagery on May 10th, showing 130 speedboats in 2 formations. Those boats are not permanent fixtures of the strait's surface. They move. They are maintained somewhere. They are fueled somewhere. Their crews are staged somewhere. The warehouses and natural coves and hardened underground shelters and camouflage netting over coastal boat storage facilities along 120 kilometers of Iranian coastline are all discoverable through the persistent overhead collection that the F-35's sensor suite is optimized to provide. The APG-81 in synthetic aperture ground mapping mode can produce imagery of coastal terrain with resolution sufficient to identify boat-sized objects under camouflage netting. The targeting system can detect the thermal signatures of recently operated boat engines that retain heat even after the engines are shut down and the boats are hidden. The ESM system is cataloging every electromagnetic emission along the coast. The F-35 Squawking 7700 was building the targeting package that tells the next strike packages exactly where to go. Now let me tell you about the diplomatic situation, because May 11th is the day the entire framework of potential resolution collapsed. Not strained, not paused, not recalibrated, collapsed. Trump called the Iranian counterproposal totally unacceptable, and an Iranian oil ministry official told the New York Times that the oil storage system is approximately 40 days from running out completely, with some well closures potentially permanent after that threshold. That is not an analytical projection. That is a number from inside the ministry responsible for managing the system that is running out. What did Iran actually propose in the counterproposal that produced the total rejection? Iran demanded war reparations, direct financial compensation from the United States for the military operations that destroyed Iranian naval assets and degraded Iranian infrastructure. The United States bombed Iranian military facilities, and Iran's position is that America should pay Iran for having done so. Iran demanded full sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz, a waterway that international maritime law has never granted to any bordering nation, and that every major seafaring government on Earth has spent decades building legal frameworks specifically to prevent any single nation from controlling. Iran demanded full sanctions relief and the unfreezing of all assets. And Iran explicitly refused to address the 440 kilograms of highly enriched uranium that the IAEA has confirmed Iran currently holds, refused to negotiate the ballistic missile program, refused to negotiate the proxy network. The counterproposal offered 2 things in exchange for everything: a cessation of current hostilities and the assertion that Iran is the aggrieved party deserving compensation. The analysis of anyone following this conflict carefully would have used the same words Trump used. Totally unacceptable is not diplomatic posturing when it comes from this specific administration. It is the specific language that precedes the next operational phase. The coalition picture is moving in exactly the opposite direction from what Iranian strategy required. Every Iranian attack on European-flagged or European-owned shipping has produced a European government less neutral than it was before the attack. The Charles de Gaulle carrier group is confirmed in the Red Sea approaching the Gulf of Aden, with the French Ministry of Defense publicly stating it is positioning for a possible freedom of navigation operation in the Strait of Hormuz. France is not advising. France is not expressing diplomatic concern from a safe distance. France is committing combat power to a position from which it can contribute to active enforcement operations. The coalition Iran has been trying to fracture through appeals to European neutrality is instead growing, and the French carrier is its most visible recent addition. Inside Iran, the Artesh fracture is the development the international analytical community has been systematically underweighting. Reports from frontline units describe Artesh soldiers deployed to exposed positions with approximately 10 rounds of ammunition each, used as screening forces by IRGC commanders who positioned their own units differently. 10 bullets sent to die by the organization that controls the oil revenue and the institutional loyalty payments. The officers and enlisted personnel who experience that are not processing it as a temporary operational decision made under pressure. They are processing it as the definitive institutional communication of what the IRGC believes they are worth. And that assessment is informing a loyalty calculation that the economic deterioration of a 73-day blockade is simultaneously pressuring from a completely separate direction. When the oil revenue stops and the IRGC cannot fund the loyalty payments that maintain its network of institutional support, the soldiers who already received the 10-bullet message have one more reason to revise their calculation. The directed energy laser fielding announcement changes the long-term economics of drone warfare in a way that makes the entire Iranian drone strategy self-defeating on a long enough timeline. The cost asymmetry that has made Iranian drone operations economically favorable, $20,000 to $30,000 per drone against hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars per interceptor missile, is the specific calculation that directed energy eliminates. A vehicle-mounted high-power laser that recharges at the speed of electricity and costs less than $1 per shot is not competing economically with Iranian drones. It is ending the competition entirely. Every Shahed that costs $20,000 and gets destroyed by a laser that costs less than $1 to fire is the reversal of every economic warfare calculation Iran has been running. The four-dimensional picture for the next operational phase is not speculative anymore. The 40-day clock from the oil ministry's own figure, the collapse talks, the F-35 ISR missions building the targeting package, the Charles de Gaulle in the Red Sea, the coalition growing at exactly the moment Iran needs it to fracture, the Artesh soldiers reassessing their institutional loyalty, the IRGC commanders watching the oil revenue that funds their entire patronage network approach complete exhaustion. The targeting package that the F-35 was building before its mechanical fault will be completed by another sortie and another after that, until the map of every cove and warehouse and underground shelter and fuel depot where the IRGC is staging its fast attack fleet is complete. And when it is complete, the B-52s operating from Diego Garcia and the F-15Es carrying advanced penetrating weapons against hardened underground storage can address the entire fast attack boat fleet at the logistics layer simultaneously, rather than one boat at a time in open water. The consulate general posted 3 words and sat back, satisfied with the performance. The pilot who squawked 7,700 was already on the ground at Al Dhafra, talking to his maintenance crew about the avionics fault that triggered the emergency, completely unaware that an Iranian diplomat had just declared his emergency landing a combat victory. The targeting package he was building before the fault occurred is 1 day closer to completion. The 40 days are counting down. The totally unacceptable answer has been delivered. And the question this conflict now forces is not whether the next operational phase begins, but which countdown reaches 0 first, the oil storage that the ministry itself says is 40 days from exhaustion, or the targeting package that the F-35 sorties are completing one coastal surveillance mission at a time. Drop your answer in the comments, because the next 40 days are going to answer that question one way or the other, and you are going to want to have been watching from the beginning.